Welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, global markets reporter at Nasdaq. Joining us for this segment, we have John Phillips, co-founder of the stock market of politics, what we call PredictIt. John, it's great to see you as always. Welcome back to Trade Talks. And you and I have so much to cover this afternoon with the Ukraine-Russian conflict. But I want to start with SCOTUS, something domestic that we can quickly cover. What are the chances of nominee Jackson making it through? Do you think there's bipartisan support there?
Well, that's really an interesting question. There is some bipartisan support, and it's a question of how much. She's almost certainly going to make it through. There's no 100% here, but the real question is which Republican senators are going to vote for confirmation. It's pretty clear that every Democrat's going to vote in favor of confirmation, and then it's highly unlikely that the senators who voted to confirm her for a lower court appointment just recently are going to now say she's not qualified to be on the Supreme Court, at least in the case of Susan Collins, who has issued a statement that generally supportive. Now, Collins is not up for re-election for several years, for 2 more cycles, but the traders think, predicted traders think, 92% odds that Collins is going to vote for confirmation. It gets us to Lisa Murkowski, who is up, but who also voted to confirm her for the lower court. So traders think it's a 68% odds that Murkowski is going to vote for confirmation. And they think, generally speaking, the good odds that it's going to be more bipartisan than that. 53, maybe 54 votes for confirmation, which would mean 3 or 4 Senate votes. Look at Romney, look at a couple of the others. Those are going to be really the swings.
Right. And let's move into Ukraine and Russia. And just off the top to say, what's happening from a humanitarian perspective and the tenacity that the Ukrainians have shown is just, it's so hard for us in the States to wrap our head around this because, in that region of the world, each country is a country. It's not like each state makes up this massive landmass that's the United States. So it really is tough for us to wrap our heads around. But we've seen the sanctions that have been implemented from our government, from Western nations. We saw recently today, in fact, the New York Stock Exchange and Nasdaq have halted for regulatory purposes Russia stocks. These sanctions really could prove to be a box that Putin can't get out of. What are predicted traders saying in terms of his longevity for 2022 for remaining in power in Russia?
Well, so I'll get to that. Let me join with you, Jill, and many others in saying that I am revolted by what the Russian president has done to this and is attempting to do to this democracy. Some of us at Aristotle have had experience working in Ukraine in their efforts to bring democracy to that country. No country is perfect. Ukraine is far from claiming perfection, but they are a democracy. And what we're witnessing here is one of the most important events of the 21st century. If this does not end well for Ukraine, it will not end well for Europe and for the rest of the world. So our thoughts and prayers are with the Ukrainian people. As far as predicted traders are concerned, it's really interesting. We ask predicted traders if they think that Putin will remain president of Russia through 2022. Think about this. I mean, this is an inconceivable that Putin would be kicked out of the presidency of Russia in less than a year. But traders think, and traders do think, that he will remain in office by 74% odds. But that's not strong odds for a strong man who seemed to have an invincible grip on power. So I would watch this market. I would also watch the market, Jill, as to whether Biden and Putin will meet before July 1st. Only 10% odds that there will be a meeting between Biden and Putin. Of course, that's something that Putin desperately wants. As you point out, the sanctions have bitten hard. They are exacting a cost on Putin's popularity, and this is not going well for the Russians in Ukraine. Of course, the people who are really suffering are the Ukrainian people. And there's just no way to put a price tag on that. But the sooner this fighting ends and democracy and territorial integrity is restored to Ukraine, I think everybody thinks the better.
Right. And it's also the Russian people as well that it's going to hurt at the end of the day when these economic sanctions have been put on. A number of these companies employ everyday Russians that work for them, and then their stocks can't trade. They don't have access to the global banking system. It's hurting the people that can't be hurt. Do you understand what I'm saying, John?
Yeah, I think you're right, and I think this goes all up and down the line. The sanctions are going to be, many were skeptical as to the efficacy of the sanctions. We've had sanctions in place on North Korea and on, Iran and on Venezuela, and these are small countries. Russia is not a small country, but it's also not, with the exception of their conventional and their nuclear weapons, it's not a major economic force anymore. They are definitely the very junior partner in their alliance with China. And so it really is, how far the ruble is going to fall. It was trading at less than a penny in the last 24 hours. I'm talking about the price of the ruble to the dollar. So, the stock market has taken a major hit. Imports into Russia are escalating in price, and inflation is going to be out of control. So there's, this is not just being fought on a military front, right? And the question is how long can Putin sustain this? And it's the Russian people who are ultimately going to make a decision as to his fate.
Right, and certainly with the 21st century, just like China's middle class, the Russian middle class has relatively enjoyed environments where inflation wasn't so out of control, like the breadlines and historically what we've come to recognize. So this is, to see your money go from 100 to a penny is just, I can't even imagine how these families are going to be able to work through this. And I am surprised to see that number of 74 to 75% where they expect Putin to stay in power. And I know, a year ago could have been 100%. So it really is a big move, but if the population far outsizes one man, I guess it's hard for us that have always lived and operated in a democracy to wrap our heads around it. So pardon my ignorance, but you would just think from a cultural and societal perspective that his power would weaken from that alone.
Well, that may, I don't think it gets better. The best day of Putin's life was Tuesday before he invaded, and it's all downhill from here. And it's a question of, and targeting the people around him, as well as the Russian, financial institutions, and then on the battlefield as well. This is not going well for Vladimir Putin. It is not what he anticipated. There are lots of questions as to whether or not he's, connected with or getting what his connection to reality is in terms of the feedback he's getting. He's somewhat in a bubble, and he's, at this point, they've got to be asking themselves, the people around him have got to be asking themselves how long they're going to stay the course.
Yeah.
Because this is not sustainable. And then at the same time, Jill, you've got this has been a major reset in thinking for the Europeans, not just the Americans. And we'll put some markets up on things like defense spending in Germany and some of the others. But the world changed in the last 6.5 days.
Yeah, it definitely did. All right, John, we appreciate the insight as always. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.
Thank you, Jill.